Welcome back to the Saw Shop, everybody. This week, it's been a week of, I forgot I had this kind of projects. Been cleaning up the shop because it flooded in here. That gives me time to move boxes, and I'm going through my shelves, and I forgot I even had this stuff. One of you guys out there sent me the remains of a broken 562. Now, if I remember correctly, the story went, I think the case got broken on this saw, and the top end and piston and everything had almost no time on it. So I was thinking, let's freshen up my 562. Now, I've had this saw forever, and this was the saw that taught me not to make my mind up on anything until I've tried it for a bit. Anyhow, stay tuned. Today's video, let's have a look at this ragged, beat up, worn out, low compression 562. Okay, so I plan to put this OEM cylinder on. Plating looks good, no issues with it. It's a lot better than what's on this saw. I bought this saw, I don't even know, 6 years ago. It is a 2000 and, I don't have my reading glasses on. Let's see, what do we got here? It's a 2014 562. So this is a first generation 562. These saws get picked on all the time, and I'm not sure why. I've been running this saw for like 5 years. It's dirty. It has a bazillion hours on it. I've had little to no trouble with this saw. I've never done an auto-tune reset. I've never had hot start issues. I've never had any issues with this saw. The only thing that's ever happened to this saw, the rear anti-vibe here broke, and the gear for the oiler stripped like 4 years ago. Other than that, I rebuilt this saw and threw it back together. Now, the hiccup in this plan was when I got this saw like 6 years ago, top ends for these were a ridiculous amount of money. I could buy these saws on sale for like $650, $700 back then for a new one. A new cylinder and piston OEM was like $500, so I just couldn't justify it. I was already into the saw for $100. I bought OEM bearings and gaskets and seals and all the rubber bits, so that probably cost me $150. So at that point, putting a new top end on this saw, I was going to be into it for the price of a new saw, and I didn't have the money to do it. So anyways, I put this cylinder on this saw reluctantly. I'll show you guys. We're going to pull this thing apart. I can't believe this thing's run for this long. I threw this together because I really just wanted to try this saw, and I was like, I'm not going to like it, but I want to see what these new whiz-bang auto-tune saws are all about. Well, that was like 5 years ago, and I've put probably more time on this saw than the rest of my saws. What do I like about this saw? It's lightweight, it's super smooth, there's no vibration. It's really, really good on fuel. If you're walking in the bush, falling timber, you don't got to bring your oil can with you, or your fuel can. This thing goes forever on a tank of fuel. It's got tons of power, tons of change speed. This is a finesse saw though, and I've had some comments about, well, finesse just means it doesn't have any power. No. You have to be a person that can sharpen a good chain with this saw. This will not pull a dull chain, but if you do have a sharp chain and the right setting on your rakers, this saw is a monster. Anyhow, friends, you might ask, does the saw still run? Well, yes, it does. I'm going to pitch you guys up here. There's no fuel in this thing. We'll see if it still starts. For those of you that are new here, welcome. I keep saying if this saw blows up, I'll rebuild it. Okay? There's no fuel in the tank. There is some fuel in the purge valve. Let's see if this thing starts. I want to show you guys before we rip this apart. This is still a running saw. Now, this is an auto tune. I've been running this outside. If you have an auto tune, I'm going to put the choke back on. If you have an auto tune, don't touch the trigger when it's on fast idle with these. My 572, which I also love, has a different auto tune than this. It runs different. These things, don't touch the trigger. Okay, ready? I hope you guys learned something there. Most of the comments that I read online, and online's a funny place, friends. I read comments all the time, and I don't know. It's a strange world out there, but people say, oh, those things don't hot start properly. The first gens didn't, but honestly, friends, read your owner's manual, and if you do, and you start this thing according to the hot start procedure, it'll start every time. Also, I read about auto-tune recalibrations. I've never done that to the saw, friends. I do that. I don't know if that's the way to do it. I put it on full choke. I fire it up. It'll start running. I click it down off of choke and let it run on fast idle for about 20 seconds. That will recalibrate the auto-tune. And then I just warm it up and go. I don't touch the trigger though, okay? That's just how these things are. Okay, so that goes to show you, this is a running saw still. Today, we're gonna take the wrap off, the top cover. I wanna get rid of this cylinder. This saw has a lot of piston slap in it now, and the cylinder is horribly scored. And the piston's fairly worn in this thing from what I saw last time looking. Anyways, just goes to show you though, I've been running this for 5 years. Like cord after cord after cord of wood has been cut with this thing. This saw owes me nothing, and it's still reliable. I've had no bottom end failures. I've had no bearing failures. I've had nothing like that with a saw. So my experience with 562s, they're incredible. Other people say they don't like them. To each their own, right? Try one and find out. This will cut right along with my 044. In average size wood. If you get into bigger wood, well, the displacement advantage, 044 is 10 cc's bigger than this, something like that, 10, 12 cc's, and it'll pull away. But in regular wood, you know, cutting firewood, this'll pull a 28 all day long, reliably, and it's got the power to do it. Now, the reason why I'm taking this thing apart, friends, it's low on compression, okay? Look. It's not the best on compression. It's getting tired, and one of you guys sent me this nice cylinder, and what I'm going to do today, we're going to pull this apart and look at it, and then coming up in a video, let's fit this cylinder and this piston. He gave me the whole rotating assembly. This piston still has the machine marks on it, so I know there's nothing going on there. I want to fit this top end on here, time it, and let's port this thing and put a pipe on it. I love this saw, and I'd like to give it more power. I have some ideas about what I'm going to do porting it, but I've never ported a straddle saw like this. I've never ported an auto tune, but I've run this saw a lot. I think I'd like to lower the RPM of this saw a little bit, or keep it stock, and just try and give it a little bit more grunt, but let's wait and see. Okay, I'm going to bring you guys in. Let's take this saw apart and let's pull this top end off. I want you to see how horrible this top end is. I can't believe this thing runs, but it does. So you never know until you try. Okay, I'm going to bring you guys in. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to take the wrappy dappy off. I ran this as a half wrap for several years. Put the full wrap. You guys know I'm a full wrap guy. Probably one of the only people in this area that runs a full wrap. Now I'm just going to take this bag. And no, that one's already got stuff in it. I'll grab another bag and throw all these parts in there. I may replace the piston on this saw. I'll have to take a peek and see what Ryan at Wolf Creek has. But let's get this project going, because once I start on it, right, I got to finish it. Just like a 372, you got the bolt that goes in the cylinder. Now, I'm pretty sure that this one is Torx on this saw. Yes, it is. I'm not sure. I think it's because the newer saws have all Torx, because this is a first gen. When I bought the wrap kit, it came with a Torx fastener. Pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that's how it is. Okay, let's take this off. If you're looking for a one saw plan and you're not cutting giant wood, this is the saw. It's not as angry as a 572, but it's angry for a 60cc saw. This thing's a monster. This is probably one of the warmest saws that I've ever run that's stock. Okay, these things are warm. In fact, I used to have a first gen 262, you know, the good one, the one with the good carb and everything. This thing would absolutely cut circles around that. So, I know what they say on the internet, but I don't know. I read all kinds of things on the internet, and a lot of them don't line up with my experience. My experience with this saw is it's reliable and it's light. This is a great saw for getting work done. I mean, friends, look how dirty this thing is, okay? This thing's got a lot of hours on it. I'm going to blow this thing off, and we'll pull the top cover off. I might as well take the top cover off now. Just going to throw the wrap over. Spin this thing around. Now, yes, they've updated these. I don't know what the Mark II consists of. Never run one, never had one. I know this air filter is often maligned, but I don't know. I don't see any fines in here. None. I've never had an air filtration problem with this saw. Some people say they're horrible, so I don't know. I run this thing sharp, though. You're not getting a ton of fines. There's this cylinder. I don't know how many hours is on this cylinder, but it's been around for a day or two. Let's take this off. I built this saw, like 5-6 years ago. I don't even think I had a YouTube channel back then. This was like a big deal to get this saw for me. I didn't have the money to buy a new saw. I was running on very, very short on funds back then. And, what else do I got to do here? Again, I'm no 562 aficionado. Just some guy in my shop. I know people think, oh, you're the Tin Man. It's like, yeah, I'm just some guy. Just some guy working on stuff. And just having fun. Okay, there's that. Well, I'm going to blow this thing off now. This does have a muffler mod. I've hogged out everything underneath the screen, but if you guys look, it still has a screen in it. I did this on purpose so that if I was going firewood cutting in a place that needs a screen, this is the saw that I'm going to run. Okay, I'm just going to blow this thing off. I'll pause it, and let's start taking the rest of it apart. Okay, I blew this thing off. Let's see how hard these auto tubes are to work on. I'm just going to grab a bag. I'm going to do this in real time because, again, I've literally not put a wrench on this thing since I put it together, other than that oiler gear, which is questionable when I got the saw. I remember when I got the saw, I was like, ooh, this oiler gear looks like it's been melted. Now, you know what killed this saw, friends? A dull chain. I got the bar and chain with it. The story I got was this was bought at a auction. The guy was a steel guy. I guess I can't fault him for that. And he bought a bunch of steel saws and a couple of Husqvarnas. This and a 257. I really wanted the 257, But the deal was, if I bought the 257, this came with it. So, I think I paid $200 or something for the 257, which ran perfectly, and this saw. I don't even think you guys could see my muffler mod, but I mean, it looks like a stock saw right now. Again, I'm going to take all this junk and put it all inside a bag so that when I put this thing back together, I'm not missing anything. Okay, let's have a look at the cylinder. I'm going to turn the light on here. Piston's got some wear. Notice there's almost no carbon in that exhaust port. And the reason for that is I use that Opti 2. That's why I use that oil. It's clean. We'll see what the top of this thing looks like. I'm going to wipe off all this crud. I know the Mark II, they gave it more space underneath the muffler because they were getting hot here and they were cracking. They also updated the cases on this saw. So I'm going to rephrase what I said. This wasn't a very good saw when it first came out, but Husqvarna will just continually make revisions to a saw until it's perfect. That's what they did with this. They've changed the carburetor, piston. I'm pretty sure they made a piston change. They've changed the carburetor, the muffler, the crankcases. So again, it's just a good saw. I really like these in this iteration. Okay, spark plug. Now, next thing, I got to get all this carburetor stuff off, and I have no idea. Okay, I'll pull that off. That's some kind of a drain tube thingamabob. I'm guessing this is the purge valve. That's the purge valve. And then there's, this clips in just like the 372, that side. And then there's this side right here. Now here, there's the throttle cable. You take that off the same way you take any throttle cable off. So you go wide open throttle. Okay, there's that. And then this opens and closes that butterfly valve. Not sure how to get that off, friends. I don't think I'm going to need to, actually. Again, let's do this together. I know some guys are just scared to work on this stuff, and me, I just dive in. It's like, what's the worst that could happen? I'm not sure if I need to take the intake off, so I'm just going to leave it for right now. I don't think you can take this intake off with the saw in one piece. Now, what size are these bolts? So they're, what size is this? 4mm. There's one. So uncrack all these. Two. Oh, these aren't super tight anymore. Interesting. I mean, they're tight, but probably not as tight as I'd put them now. Maybe I got stronger since I was in my 30s. Probably not, eh? Okay, I'm just going to pause you guys here and I'll undo these 4 screws. Yeah, I guess we can just yak. They're almost out. Now, these have spacers underneath the screws. Hopefully those don't fall in. I remember that when I was putting this thing together. We can have a good look at this bottom end after 6 years and gallons and gallons and gallons of Opti 2. This saw has pretty much... I ran some... what did I run through this saw at the beginning? I was running... I think Red Armor or one of those, you know, premium oils, and then I switched to Opti 2. That's pretty much all this saw's ever eaten. Maybe that's why the bottom end's never failed. Okay, last one's here. I want you guys to see this because when I show you this cylinder, you're going to be like, I can't believe that thing ran. Okay. Now, do I have to take anything else off to get this? Oh, that's on there. I feel like I got a bolt still done up. but I don't. I can see them underneath here. Let's just make sure that everything's undone. Okay. Interesting. Should only be 4. Well, when in doubt. I may have put some Moto Seal under this gasket. Who knows what I did back then. Now again, I don't know if I can take this apart in one piece. Okay, there's my fuel line. So I'm going to try and not bust that. Okay, fuel line's down on the side of the carb here. That's clipped in. There you go. There's that off. I think that's everything. Oh, that's... Okay, so here I am fumbling around. Take the 2 screws off the air horn and the whole carburetor comes off. I undid a whole bunch of extra things that I didn't need to undo. So there's my carburetor. I think this is like an EL46 maybe. Can't remember. Okay. Unclip this. I was trying to get this wire off here. Okay. There you guys go. There's the top end. Remember, there are spacers on here. Right here. Okay. Don't want to lose those. Okay, that should be everything. Now, before we look at the top end, I'm just going to take this intake off. I remember it's the intake you can't put on after. You have to put it on first. Because these screws, you can't get at them. At least I couldn't with any of the tools that I had. That's absolutely caked. It's good though. All this dirt and debris is from me. So... for once I'm working on a dirty saw, that's my fault. That feels good. One thing I remember about this saw, when I first got it going, the guys I was cutting with, I used to cut with a couple of guys. They're, 50s, 60s. They all ran 372s, that kind of thing. 266s. That's where I got my love for them, for those saws. But when I first started running this, they were all like, wow. Because this thing sounds pretty nutty. So high RPM saw. There you go. Okay, so there's your intake. I'm just going to bag all this stuff up and then let's have a look at this top end. Okay, let's have a look at the cylinder. I just kind of wiped it out here. Okay. Look at the transfers. Those are scores over top. Okay. You can listen. Okay, it's getting caught by my screwdriver. Exhaust side, if I remember correctly, there was a couple of scores over top. You can see them down here. Okay, transfers, both sides. Just wiping it out with my finger. You hear that? It's like a cheese grater. Now, this saw ate the bottom end bearings, and the pieces that came out the transfers, got stuck in here and ate the cylinder. Now again, I threw this together like 6 years ago. Now this is I was feeling the saw was down on power. The plating's starting to come off here. Okay. Right there. I can feel that. It dips. So, and it's all scored here. This saw is in rough shape, but again, it still ran. Let's have a look at the piston. Intake side of the piston is all scored up here now. Big scores on the transfers right there. Let's see what's going on this side. This is a brand new Meteor piston when I put this saw together. Okay. It's all scored on the sides. There you go. Right there and there. Exhaust side. Okay, it's scored here. Look at the top. See how it's all worn there? This thing's starting to rock. And I bet you this skirt, oh, this skirt's really sharp. So this piston was starting to do this. I could actually hear it while the saw was running. And eventually the piston would have just broken. Okay, well, it's actually the next night. And here's what's left of the 562. What I wanted to get at, or, you know, in closing this video is have your own experience, and whether it be what truck you drive or power saws or anything in life, have your own experience and try things out for yourself. I had read on the internet that these saws were problematic, they were unreliable, they were hard to start, they didn't hot start, they blew up bearings. I bought this saw kind of as a joke. Yeah, I'll prove to myself how horrible these 562s are. Well, friends, that was 5 or 6 years ago. I've been running this saw steady, tank after tank, year after year, and I've literally had no trouble with it. I've never been to the dealer to have it plugged in. It's a reliable saw, and it's a powerhouse. So it just goes to show you, I was wrong about this saw, and it's been a good saw, and I've enjoyed it. So anyhow, stay tuned. I'm going to get this cylinder cleaned up. I think I may order a new Meteor piston from Ryan just to get it, you know, really freshened up. We're going to go with the cylinder that was donated. Again, thank you to the fellow that donated these parts. And I want to get this thing back up and running. And while we're doing that, let's continue to work on the 394. I want to put a timing wheel on that and see where it times. I have no idea. Anyhow, friends, thanks for watching. Take her easy, and I'll see you guys in a couple of days.